on the 21st of November at 6:03 p.m. First item on the agenda we're going to look at would be the October financial statements. I'm going to turn that over to Mike.
Yeah, Ken, if you can pull it up. If not, I could share my screen. I have everything open as well. I just also want to take the time to recognize Angela for helping me while I was sick, get these financials together. It was a very big help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this particular month was very similar to last month, and if you remember, last month's expenses jumped up quite a bit because it was the full year, the full payroll. So, Ken, if you could just scroll down a little bit. So coming in this month to date actual at 14 million. Rich, I want to point out the budgeted number, if you look at the total, is still that 167.5, and we had discussed pulling that out and putting it on the bottom. But in talking with Joanne from the city and also Angela pointing out that those funds are going to have to be managed very similar to the way we manage our grants. So it's actually not going to be in the general fund. We're going to have that in the grants report in the months to come.
Okay, that was one of the comments I was looking to make, but go on with your report.
Yep. So year to date, we're coming in at 32 million with additional encumbrances of 109. So we do still have a balance that's in line with what we saw last year. And as we push through the year, the balance will come down. You can continue to scroll down, Ken.
Can I ask one question real quick? Back to the budget amount 167.5, you said you're going to have that, is it that $7 million?
It's the
That's
ARPA
going
money,
to be,
Teresa, the 7.5 million.
right, so
Yeah.
that's the part that's going to go into the grant line.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
we'll be left with the original appropriation of the 160 million.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So again, we have our line items by budget. We're working on doing some of the reallocation. Rich, you know that's a project that we've been working on for some time now. I had some ideas about how to do that. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing in the year-to-date in the budget numbers is negative numbers that were budgeted that I'm not sure in 2024 how to navigate quite yet. So Ed Aram is coming in tomorrow. I'm going to pick his brain and see if he could come up with a better way to reallocate that money. And then in this particular report, you'll also see that 7.5, we're trying to just locate the accounts where they were plugged in so we can pull them out. But after we do that and we can reallocate the budget, this will look a lot cleaner.
Okay.
I keep trying to scroll.
Mike, when you say a lot cleaner, you mean less negative balances?
Negative and positive, yeah. So the variances are on the column all the way to the right.
Right.
So you'll see that those will start to approach zero as we clean up the budgeted item. Okay, Ken, you can scroll to the bottom. This you'll see it'll total again at the bottom as it usually does. Keep going down. So here we see again, the salaries are, for the second month have increased. Just stop right there for 1 second. We'll see down at the bottom of the totals that there is about a $500,000 swing uptick from last month. And I'm not sure if everyone remembers, but I'll point it out again. There are a few accounts that it's based on timing. So for us, it's pupil transportation. You'll see that in the previous month, there was no pupil transportation, and then we got the bill for $756,000. That's that top line that Ken's pointing to now. And you can scroll to the bottom of this report. I just want to show that variance, if you could blow it up a little bit. So you see last month we were at the 13.5, this month we're at 14.0, and that's just largely driven by the increase in transportation cost.
Mike, how often do we get charged those bills? Just to give the board a sense, cyclically, how often do they come in?
Last year we were getting them probably about every other month. Bev pays them. The other one that's usually acts up is utilities. So you'll see this also happens in utilities.
So Mike, to clean the problem up and to make the report a little bit more manageable, basically what we're looking at a report that's on a cash basis, to the extent that you also add in here encumbrances or put in, my understanding now, through purchase orders. So as we've often accrue, I don't know if you have the ability to establish accruals, but with regards to the transportation or utility bills which lag behind, is there a way to get a feel for a better number to put in a purchase order for the month as to what the estimate for that monthly cost would be, so we sort of normalize it and then just reverse that out in a particular period when you get the actual bill, so that we don't have to go through and look at all these swings. The only thing you'll have is maybe a variance between what you estimated and what the actual was.
Yeah, so for transportation, the expense does vary from month to month, but not much. We know pretty much what it's going to be. It's contractual. As far as utilities go, there usually is a little bit of a swing. Historically, what I've done in other places is just take a look at the previous year and do an accrual based upon that.
I think we should start working to eliminate the swings, based on the cash basis, is to bring it up to more of a combined, full accrual basis, utilizing your purchase orders, however you want to get the numbers in. And the best guess for those items that come in a month or two later, so it doesn't skew the statement, and we have to go through a needless conversation.
Sure. Yeah, we can convert it into a modified cash if you think that would be more useful.
Yeah, I'd like to, it's strictly do something where it's a combination of cash plus the accruals, and the accruals accounting for your purchase orders, which basically is somewhat of an accrual, as well as stuff that you anticipate. As I said, like a utility bill, you're going to get 12 of those bills, but you may get 2 or 3 in 1 month, and then your financial statements are going to look screwy on a line number basis because you're going to have blanks, and then 1 month you're going to have a huge number. So,
right.
You're not going to be that far off on the estimate, which is going to skew any of the bottom line numbers.
Right.
Can I ask if you can explain that in English?
An accrual you could think of it pretty much as a placeholder. We don't have the actual amount. We haven't actually paid it, but based upon historical values, we'll take a best guess at what it is and put a number in there as a placeholder.
Yeah. Under what column?
So for this month, or for last month, we would have seen it in transportation because we didn't get a transportation bill in time.
Okay.
And Teresa,
Or-
it would
or
be in the
utilities.
column, it would be in his encumbrance column. So the encumbrance columns basically are potential liabilities that the district has that they don't really have, but that are not due at this particular point in time. So you can have in the encumbrance column, if you have a contract, you can have the full 12-month value of the contract in that. And what you'll do is to keep in the encumbrance contract just the number of months that are still open. And when you pay off, let's say if you have 12 months and you pay off the first 2 months, then your encumbrance basically will have the 10-month obligation. What we're saying here is that if you don't have a contract or an obligation, so such as perhaps when you get something at home, you'll get to you generally Eversource will send a bill, let's say the 15th of every month. But if they send it on the 25th and your accounting cycle closes, and you want to display in a particular month an accurate presentation of your costs, you can say that, okay, in this particular month, I didn't get the bill, but my average utility cost is X number of dollars, and I'm going to estimate that and put that in as an encumbrance or as a liability so that at least the number's there, and it just makes more credibility to look at the statements rather than have huge fluctuations based on cash.
I appreciate the explanation, but do we see that on here when it's listed, or he just points it out?
You'll see it's in the details of a particular column called encumbrance, and then Mike will be able to tell you what the culmination of that particular encumbrance number is.
Okay, no, so I'm not missing something. It's there. It's just, you gotta know, he's gotta point it out,
Yeah,
that it's an accrual.
exactly. So to think
Thank
of
you.
the encumbrance column, I would say encumbrance slash accrual, and I don't mean to get too technical, but it just cleans up these statements so you don't have these wide fluctuations.
No, that makes sense. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But I
Yeah.
thought I was missing something. But I appreciate, no, thank you.
No,
Thank you
it-
very much.
it's like before, last year when I asked John Spang to go through and give definitions of some of these categories and what the definition of the encumbrance was, things like that, because the more, I get to be in the same point with Kara, is and I should take my own advice in knowing my audience, but in talking to Mike, it's on a different level than I would talk to the
To me,
the rest of the committee members who are lay people, so I apologize for that.
no,
All I'm trying to do is to get the statements, to a point where we can rely on them. But
I
because,
hear you.
right now, and Mike, let me say this, and I don't pay you a compliment, so don't take my criticism as personal. I've been very frustrated in the last couple of years with the presentation of the financial statements. They've been horrible. You've walked into a situation which is a nightmare, and particularly that damn audit thing, which takes up a tremendous amount of your valuable time, compounded with walking into a budget where you played little, if any, role in understanding where what the numbers represent and where they were. So the faster, and it's a lot of it's my impatience, but understanding your workload, the faster we get. Let me ask you this before I go on. The presentation of these numbers in that budget column, did John put that together or did Aaron put that, Ed put that together?
That was John.
That was John, okay. So that's unfortunate. So what, to me, my opinion is to go through the financials as we're doing now makes it very difficult to me to have an interest. Number one, there's $7.5 million in here, which is a lot of money for, and again, it's not a negative comment about to you, but for which we don't know anything at this point as to where those costs lie in any one of these line numbers. Number two is, to whatever extent that cash was laid out against any of that ARPA money or encumbered, I'm not sure. I don't know if any of the $7.5 million that we were allocated were given, if we've spent any of those monies. And that being the case, that also skews the monthly report in terms of saying how much expenditures we have in a particular month. So bottom line is, the faster we get and extract out that $7.5 million and all its respective accounting columns that pertain to it, the better off we can go through these particular reports. Because at this point here, it's almost a meaningless exercise to do that, because if you look at the variances, you have no idea, I don't have any idea as to what part of that variance may or may not include any of these ARPA funds. So that's one, that's my comment on that. As to, and I was gonna, it's part of the other part of the agenda in terms of reports. Yes, I had said to show it underneath this report, but if you want to show it in grants, I don't care, just so long as we have similar type accounting by line numbers and all this stuff here in terms of the format. I don't think the city can tell us or should tell us. I think it's amongst us how we want to see the presentation of the financial statements to us, so long as they're properly labeled and categorized. This is our business, it's not their business. But they're correct in saying it shouldn't be part of the overall budget. And as a correction to your comment on the year-to-date summary, you made a reference, which is an incorrect reference, that the 167.5 is part of the operational budget. That's not the case. The operational budget is the 160 million. The 167.5, if you want to talk about it, I would call it a spending plan, is the both. But don't get confused and have people get confused that our budget is 167.5, because that number is not coming to us next year as an appropriation. If nothing else happened, we're guaranteed to get $160 million next year as a bare minimum, because the city can't give us anything less. So you don't want to mislead somebody and think we're going to get 167.5, or if you take any measures as to an increase over this year, you certainly don't want to take any budget increase you're proposing over the 167.5. So that's just for clarification purposes. I do want to go down to the line numbers that there are some negative numbers on here. I'm not sure if we should pay so much attention to them, but they have negatives. And this stage of the game, I was just wondering why we would have some of the negatives, some of the negative numbers that we're looking for. If you look at like health insurance and those categories,
Should be the second box down, Ken.
I mean, you got a negative in a life, life insurance, small. Underneath that, got some 12,000 in dental, dental insurances. Um, you-
Are you looking at, the
He was
sheet
looking at
before
the,
this
the
perhaps?
top part. Yeah.
I think, yeah, maybe scroll up a little bit.
Yeah, not the grants.
No, it's in the, yeah, I'll tell you what my numbers.
So this is the 52. Anything with a 52 is a benefit.
you look at it-
Right there.
You're on a page there, you'll see
Good.
the,
Yeah, the second page.
Yeah, so these are the variances, and the reason that there are, variances is because the budget, I think the intent was for John to reallocate the budget in July. I don't think he intended to do it earlier. But the big one that's on here is about 10 down. It says part-time printing.
Okay.
And the total variance for that, one of the larger variances we have is 4.2 million. There's not actually 4.2 million in part-time printing. Those were salaries that were sitting in ESSER 3 that had to come out. And I think he had to put a charge code in, and I think he used that charge code 51198 because it really isn't used very often. At least he'd know where everyone was. And then I think, like I said, his intent was in July to reallocate those people, the actuals, to where they belong.
but as you, so, as we're talking, Mike, the report, and again, so nothing criticized against you, becomes almost useless until we get this squared away in Kara. I know Mike only has so many hours in a day, but whatever we could do to get Ed to go through and to analyze it however he can, or whatever we have to do to get these numbers squared away so that we know what's in them, so that we can, if we don't know what's in them, I also find it hard to comprehend that we know how to charge something against it, So
Yeah, that's been a little bit of the frustration with understanding kind of where, everything that's in each line, and there's a lot of backtracking that Mike is trying to do now to try to trace back different moves that were made. So, and as far as Ed goes, he's been coming in like once a week or so. So
but I don't think that's what I'm concerned about. Kara is in a few weeks, you're gonna, things are gonna shut down, and you're gonna be focused on the budget.
Yeah.
And for a period of 4 weeks or 6 weeks, we're gonna just only breathe and talk about the budget. And then by the time we get to this, it'll be May or June, and we'll have a third year of wasted statements, which I also think is a blemish on us, because we're supposed to be the custodians of the money. If we can't account for it, it puts us in a bad position, and it shows that we have egg on our face. So the point is, Ed's got to step up and bring in more time, or we've got to figure out how to bring in some people who know how to go through these general ledgers, figure out what's in there. But I think this project is a time of the essence project as well, in addition to the 12 others you got on your plate. But,
I agree.
all right. So, I mean, it's because the further we go along without it, we'll have meaningless conversations we'll have meaningless conversations on the numbers. And it's going to be hard too, if we start putting together a new budget and you start doing comparisons, you really can't, it's not going to make any sense. So it just puts us in an awkward position that unfortunately we were stuck with. And, again, it's like last year, the last 3 or 4 months of the year, we were holding our breath so that, we came out, and fortunately, we were, looking for a break even, or if it was a break even, a positive break even with a small amount. And then lo and behold, it's $2 million positive. So you say, wow, it's a nice surprise, but, for somebody who's somebody who's in charge of the finances, that's a big surprise to say, that's a big swing.
Yeah,
Certainly
Rich, to your
better-
point, I don't think it should be a surprise. You should know where you're gonna end up.
No, I understand, but I'm saying it was a surprise to us when
Yeah.
all along we were keeping our breath, holding our breath, looking for a marginal positive number, and then we come up with a $2 million positive. Certainly a lot better than negative, but on the other hand, I'd hate to be your financial advisor with swings like that. So I really think from my point of view, enough said on this particular statement, and going back to the narrative, the narrative we have to continue working on so it tells us a big story as to what's happening. I can certainly work with you on a narrative once we get these numbers, so that when we get a monthly narrative, it tells somewhat of a story. So it doesn't require you to go back into these numbers and analyze them yourself and have a conversation, but would be a starting point to either accept and just confirm and to build upon it, rather than have us go through and do the investigative reporting on why the ups and downs and things like that. But, I think first things first. First, we've got to clean up the budget, know what we've got in there. And we can't wait until July to do allocations. That's insane. I mean, that's absolutely insane, because it just distorts everything. If you're keeping all this money in the operational budget, and then mid-year you pull out 50% of the number and say it should go against grants or some other place, and you're looking at my example, you're looking at the grant budgets, and it looks very, very favorable, and then you get a 6-month hit, which normalizes things or puts you in a different position. The name of the game here is not surprises. There should be no surprises when you're looking at these financials. If you want to move on to the grant part, that's fine. Does anybody else have any comments? I'm sorry. Seeing none, then Mike, move on to the grants.
Then you could scroll down to the bottom. So, Rich, if you remember, last month we spoke about also redoing the way we're reporting on grants. Grants have some interesting aspects to them, because there are both 1-year grants and 2-year grants. Many of them have various expirations. So some of them expire on 6/30. Some are at the end of the year in December, and then others are in the fiscal year. And it just becomes very difficult to understand and manage, because you don't know how much longer you have. By looking at the reports that come out of Tyler anyway, you don't know. The other thing that Angela pointed out is that in our grants, mixed in with the regular ones, and Ken, you could scroll down a little bit more. It should be like the last 2 or 3 pages. We have not only regular grants from this year, but we have carryover grants in here. You'll see them mixed in. And I really think that we should probably look at them separately. So Angela has a report from that she's been working on to break this out into that manner, because to your point, just looking at these numbers, it doesn't tell the story. It's very hard to parse out and look at.
That's part of the conversation we'll have on future reporting. Kara, let me ask you a question. Can could you offer suggestions to us, to Mike, as to classifications of the grants? In other words, you know, the Alliance grant, Titles 1, 2, 3, etc. Do they have a commonality significance where you can group that, say that this is
Yeah, yeah, so you have state grants, right? You have state entitlements, you have federal entitlements, then you have competitive grants, so the state can offer competitive grants. So for example, Title One is an entitlement grant, Title Two, Title Three. There are other grants that are federal grants that are competitive. So you have to apply for those every single year. You have to compete with anybody else. You don't know if you're going to get them or not. It's kind of up in the air. You don't know if the LEAP grant is a classic one where we're not sure each year what will be sustainable. Sometimes they're reduced. So there's certain grants that you can sort of rely on as predictable and reliable, and then there's other grants that are competitive, and then of course there's like a private grant, like the bar grant would be a private foundation grant. And so I'd probably say there's like maybe 3 or 4 buckets.
That's great. So to that point, there's a starting point, Mike. If we can take those classifications as to entitlement, state and federal, competitive, and then private, we could use those as major categories, and underneath those categories, put the particular grant that belongs there. The other thing I would do is add in another column, after your budget balance, put in expiration. This way we have an idea as to when those grants expire. Or if you even want to go further and add another category called carryover, that's fine. But then at least to us, Kara, we have an understanding as to where these fall. To your point, what's competitive, out of this particular number, how much may or may not come back next year, what we think we can rely on. So again, we're becoming a little bit more sophisticated in terms of looking at these numbers, understanding what they are in certain classifications that has a meaning to us, the layman, plus yourself, Karen, your staff, whoever looks at this. So maybe
Rich, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, Rich. Teresa has her hand up. A quick question, I think.
Go ahead, Terry.
I think a couple years ago, we had the grants set up by expiration date to give us an idea how long. That was the most, that we determined that was the most important classification, was really the expiration date, when we knew the particular grant was expiring. Some, like you said, are 1 year, some have 2 year. That was the that cleared up a lot. I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe we had that. And then for some reason we went back to them just listing it.
Yeah.
I-
I remember that, Teresa, and it was helpful. We had a chart, and
Yeah.
Angela just went in and started to organize that chart. So we'll have that. We should have that, for the next meeting. But it definitely lays out the dates and everything. The other tough thing about the grants is you can have a grant and allocation in here. So for example, like the increasing diversity allocation in here, that was just approved a couple days ago. That money was sent over, sitting, which you can't touch it, you can't spend it, and it's on a reimbursement. So that's an example of one where you get an allocation, but you can't spend it until it gets approved. The work plan. So the state is just getting around to approving some of those, and there's a few other ones on the list here as well. So some of these they give the allocation, but you can't start the reimbursement until you get approved. So there's a lot of
why do we list it then? It's pending. It's not even ours yet. That shouldn't even be on there.
They give it to us, but the spending plan gets approved. So it's kind of like, that's one of those, you're gonna get the money, but your plan has to get approved. So that's, there's a whole sub subcategory of these beyond the categories that we talked about.
Then, and that definitely then should be a separate category, because that's
Yeah,
important.
so we'll lay out the things just so that we can kind of explain them a little bit more. But we did the dates, to your point, Teresa, are very important. And then, you know, we tried this once before. I think people got a little bit overwhelmed because when you start to try to explain what every single one of these grants, the requirements and the contingencies and the strings and what you can spend it on, what you can't spend it on, you know, what
But
goes.
but as a finance committee, do we really need to know that?
No,
We just
no.
need to know the expiration date. We got
Sure.
this money. It is just pending, you know,
Yes. Yeah,
as a finance
absolutely.
committee.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
And we'll be able
for
to,
yeah, for your records, you need that.
yeah, well, just because sometimes we get questions and every single one is different with different rules of engagement, so.
Yeah. I think. we're on
Rich,
the
I'm
right
so
track.
sorry. Juanita has her hand up now.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Juanita.
I wanted to ask a specific question about the Alliance District funding, so I can hold off, Rich, if you want to go first.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Is Mike still on? Michael?
Yep.
Okay, one of the attachments that you sent was in regard to the Alliance District funding.
Yep.
So in looking at that, you also were able to show us by location the different amounts, correct? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I do, and I think, Kara, that was actually something that was new this year, where they asked for it by location.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so, okay, my question is, and it is by location. I don't see ACE on there.
So so the Alliance grant, we have a lot of kindergarten teachers in there, right? All of our kindergarten teachers, bilingual, TESOL bilingual. You have, oh, who else is in there? We've got social workers, coaches, etc. So the majority of the staffing in this grant, we have a lot dedicated at the elementary level because most of our ESL bilingual is at that level. Certainly we have a lot of, some schools have five kindergarten teachers across. So you'll see a lot in there, but our ACE staff is pegged in the priority grant. So almost the entire priority grant is dedicated to alternative education. So the whole grant for priority is the ACE staff. So all of their staffing is in a separate grant. Because that grant better suits the theme of the grant. So they're not in Alliance. The staffing anyways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. That was the question that I had.
Sure.
So, we're getting to be in the right track. And Teresa, we'll start to put in different formats that we could agree on, on the particular, the grants, and then we could, agree as a body as to how we'd like to see as the format. I don't know how these are done, but when I was working, I had the Excel spreadsheets, and so if I had something like this, I'd be able to do it in the 3 classifications, and then I'd sort on that last column, which I would have as the due date, and run a report by due date, so you have the flexibilities there. The other thing too is sometimes it's nice to have an addendum to the schedules, just indicating just what the grants are for, not in a whole lot of detail, but what's the purpose of the Alliance? What's the purpose of the LEAP grants? Title 1, 2, 3, just simple sentences so that you do have an idea what these grants are for. But again, that's more polishing up the report. Right now, I'd like to get to the point where the reports become usable and functionable, and then we can worry about putting the icing on the cake.
Rich, if I could just point out, we did produce that last year for all the major grants, entitlement grants, and the major state federal grants. So what each grant is geared for. We didn't put the whole thing in there, but a general gist so that people,
And
so we,
if you can come up with, I forgot that, but if you can resurrect that. and
yeah, it's
perhaps,
definitely in the minutes somewhere. We'll have to go back and look.
Okay, just have Kara send it out and we'll
Mm-hmm.
include it in the packet so that we can just have this is sort of like a glossary at the end of the report.
Little
and-
cheat
and
sheet.
Have
Yeah.
it, have it fixed. So thanks for reminding me.
Sure.
Does anybody else have any questions on the financials? Okay, that being, as I said, I apologize for being critical, but I'm afraid that we're gonna get too far into the year and just have another wasted year. And I really don't want that to happen. The next item on the agenda is the 24-25 Alliance Grant Summary. Kara, if you want to go through that and discuss that.
Sure. So, you know, we haven't really done this before, and I know we've, you know, and I think it's important to do it, but you know, it's $30 million, so you should be able to see how that money categorically is spent and where it's being spent. This year, different than in years past, they've asked us to tag the allocations by school. So, some schools have more kindergarten teachers than others. Some schools have more bilingual TESOL teachers, and because we've differentiated the grant in that way, that's kind of makes up the difference between some of these. You know, so you'll see that some of the schools are quite a bit. They're some of the larger schools, but it really all depends on the staffing and how many people that we've put in the grant that actually work in that school. The general fund picks up a lot of the other staff. So there's really not a ton of rhyme or reason to how many in, you know, Haystown, for example, may have more in Alliance and less in general fund. Whereas, you know, Rogers Park has more in general fund than they have in Alliance. So it's not that anybody's getting shortchanged. It's just how the staffing worked out over the years as we added members in. The big change this year in the
Excuse me, Kara.
sure.
This was sort of a last minute add on there. Do we have the capability of putting your write-up on the screen? I'm not
Oh,
sure.
it's yeah.
It's the next tab over, Ken.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I'm reading. I'm just reading
Yeah,
away.
that's it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank
Ken,
you.
is there
Yeah,
any way
I
you
think
could zoom in a little bit, just a tiny bit? Thank you, Ken. Okay. So, the big change, if you look at the Danbury High School number, that was the line that really blew up this year, and kind of took on the a good portion of the increase that we received this year. So as we were shifting from general fund to Alliance to support academies, a lot of staffing shifted over with it. So the academy staffing that's going to be on that West End campus was who we shifted over into this grant. One of the categories in Alliance are bold reforms, right? And so we captured that narrative in there, and that was approved as a qualified expense. So that helps to relieve the general fund also, but also if we didn't start moving staff into some of these grants, we would not be able to fund them. So it is definitely, you know, a needed strategy, but also one that I think, you know, makes the most sense for us at this time. We also tried to leave a good pocket of money. We didn't, you know, there's so a lot of I'll go back to the stuff that you see under the Danbury School District at the top of the line on top of where the location is. So that's an amalgamation of all the other things in the district. So purchase and professional services, other purchase services. We've some transportation in there. We have some Kelly sub services in there. There's at least a couple $2 million in sub costs in there that'll get charged over the course of the year. So there's a lot of money like that in there. Supplies, so curricular supplies, testing supplies, PSAT, our power school is in here, big expensive kind of items and contracts that we have almost on a yearly basis that we renew. You'll find in here as well. Under the property section, for example, that'll be some more student devices, headphones, some computers, part of the refresh. So between the money that the mayor is giving us, the 7.5, and what we have in Alliance, we'll be able to do our next refresh cycle. And I did try to squeeze copiers in there and it got booted out. So I had to,
Oh,
I tried, Teresa, I really did. but they didn't like that. It wasn't a
Oh,
student device per se.
oh,
And then, regular professional development, things that come out over the year. But the preponderance is in that salary line and the benefit line. And that does offload quite a bit of money off of our general fund and has been doing so for years. I had an opportunity. So today we had our first Alliance District monitoring visit with our new state monitoring supervisor. And what happens is we put together a mega deck of information that we go over, and we talk about the Alliance grant, we talk about the performance metrics, we talk about strategies and how we're using the money, but also what type of work we're doing in the district. And so we talked a lot about also the fear really in Alliance that the ECS, this is our ECS pass-throughs, this is also our ECS allocation, but that if you look at the schedule for the Alliance, it tops out at 25-26. So after the 25-26 school year, it just levels off. And so, one of the things I always try to point out is that when you have a lot of salary in grants, which we do because of our history of financial allocations, those go up, our contractual obligations go up every single year. And so we have to be very careful not to put any more staff in here, just, probably a handful more, but we don't want to outspend our allocation over time once this taps out. We're not the only district that's concerned about this. The state is talking about with the Alliance districts on how to handle that situation, and at least in the terms of cost of living adjustments and all of that. But that's definitely on the topic of concern for the urban school superintendents.
I think that's a very important comment to make, Kara, so that we're all aware. And historically, I always look at the Alliance is to be fungible. It offset a lot of the overages that we couldn't afford in the operational budget. Fortunate enough to have the capability of putting in here. But when you continue to load it up with salaries, that has a continuing effect.
Yes.
You've got to be careful. And this is the first time, as far as in my tenure, that we've ever seen what's been in Alliance.
Mhm.
We, being the board people, have
Yeah.
ever seen it. So as part of the reporting process, Mike, it should be that when we report on this subject, that as part of the budget items, we should have this reporting in some sort of an accounting or line number fashion, so that we can monitor the expenditures against the proposed expenditures. And Kara, am I correct in saying that every year you have to, or is it more so during the year, you have to present this to the state to get approved in order to get funding?
Right. So every year you have to redo the application. It's an expectation sort of that we're going to get the money. It is an expectation that we'll get the money, but the plan itself has to be approved. So what they do is that you submit it, and they go through it and vet it for qualified expenses and in line with the grant. And then they ask questions. And so I go through a process with them. And then they'll either kind of provisionally approve it, or not, or kick back certain items, or ask for more detail, or ask for more clarity. And generally, they don't, it's not like this grant changes all that much, but from year to year, you might swap out one thing for another or something, you move on to a different curricular resource that's the better version or the newer, so, but this year, because of the big addition, that was definitely a big rewrite in the grant. So
it'd be nice if we
Rich.
had the capability of having substantial amount of funds in one-time expenditures, so that
Yeah.
it helps us in the future with the operational budget.
Yeah.
But I think this is a tremendous start. And again, we make more and more progress in getting to know, what makes up the finances of the district. Does anybody have any questions on this?
I do.
Okay, Teresa.
The Alliance supervisor, what's the name and are they the same every year?
You're looking at her. I would love to shed this responsibility right now.
Really?
We just don't have enough hands to, I'm still very much involved in the development of the grants, the writing, the detail. This was the first time I actually, for this grant, I hit the submit button. So now it was quite, it was funny because I wrote it and then I had to go down to another office and approve it from my, from the superintendent's desk. So I had to, so it was a little different. And it was a good process because I've done that with a lot of grants where I write the content and the strategies to kind of quilt things together to make things work. But now I'm on the other end also approving them. And there's some extra steps and stuff in the there's our assurances and things that you have to go through as a superintendent that, I didn't see before. But, this is something, and I was reading the details in Alliance, and that the board should see the categories, they should see the spending by school. And that's a recommendation. And I don't know that we've done a good job of that over the years, or maybe, just not inadvertently, but that's why I wanted to make sure that you saw this, you understood the categories, and you saw where the spending is. And, from time to time, from a strategy perspective, as we head into, next year too, there's still time to talk about how to use this grant. If we, as a board, we can't make too many changes to it because we're kind of the salaries and things, we're highly dependent upon a lot of fixed pieces in here to keep those going. But certainly I use the grant here strategically to align resources to things that we have in our district plan so that there's some funding behind whatever it is that we're rolling out at the time, whether it's professional learning or particular curricular resources, things like that.
It certainly is a step in the right direction, and it's a big number, and something that's been, historically has been a big mystery. Just a great job. Moving
These will
on.
get approved, Rich, if you will, approved with financials. I think they should be approved just like the financials get approved. So on an annual basis.
Right. For this meeting, do we have to make a motion or a recommendation to the board that we approve this presentation?
Yes, that we're hoping that's on. Yeah, Kara P put it on for next week before we leave. Yes, so yes, that's the intent.
So then in our minutes, Kate, we'll just note that the finance, well, if we have to take a vote, does everybody agree that we, as the finance committee, recommend this to the board to accept as authorization for the funding of the Alliance grant?
So should I make a motion to that effect, Rich? I'll
Yeah, then
motion what
you
you're
can
asking.
put it, you can put it in the minutes, and then it'll be official, and we can make the recommendation to the board so that they could authorize it.
I second it.
Kate, you want to clean up the motion or just?
I guess I'll make a motion to recommend the Alliance grant report be
Approved.
approved,
Yeah,
sorry,
approved
recommended to the board for first reading.
and to be approved annually by the board.
I'm sorry,
sorry.
I just can't hear you guys. There's a lot of noise going on.
I just want to make sure I understand correctly, Rich. So we're making a recommendation for this specific report as well as for,
The
a
financial
future,
report.
annual approval.
We'd like the finance department, the committee is recommending to the board that annually they approve the presentation of Alliance expenditures. Does that say it, Kara?
It does, and I'm just thinking, because this is the first time we've done this, I'm just wondering if like maybe every October or November, whatever month where we do the financials, that when you make a motion to approve the
Yeah,
October financials, that motion says something like, which includes, you know, the alliance, whatever.
Yeah.
That just wraps it all up as a financial package. And if that works, I mean, this time around, we could just approve it separately, because I think it's written that way, but, or you can do it as a, actually, I don't think it's too late. Kara didn't she didn't send everything out. She could make a motion to approve the October financials, which includes the alliance expenditures.
okay, that's fine.
So maybe we'll just do that as a single
Yeah,
motion.
I think so.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll make a motion then to recommend the October 2024 financial report, including the Alliance grant expenditures to the board.
correct.
Thank
that
you.
sounds.
I
that sounds
And
second.
then, thank you, Terry.
Teresa, and then all in favor would be aye.
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 Thank you. So, good. Next item that's on the agenda is the recommendation to the Board of Ed to withdraw the reserve drawdown to request to the city the 23 fiscal year.
Yeah,
A recommendation to the Board of Ed to withdraw the reserve drawdown request to the city, to the city. Right.
So this is the balance?
No, so what we're
I'm going to speak to
trying to
that.
do is last year, it's my understanding that the board approved and the board gave approval for John and Kevin to go before the council or the ad hoc committee to request a drawdown of reserve monies that they had. That request has never been acted upon, and that request is still open. And I asked them, we were advised the best way to get that situation just closed and off the calendar, so to say, is for Mike to write a letter to the city council and the mayor, etc., withdrawing that request. I don't know if we have a copy of your letter, Mike, but that's what we're gonna.
it's not attached.
It's not attached. If you want, if you have a copy, you want to read it, or shall I read it?
Yeah, if you have it.
Okay. So to the committee members, we're looking to, and we put here the copy that was sent to the city council that you guys approved last year, authorizing John and Kevin to go before the council to request this money. Again, there has never been any action taken on this particular request, and it's still an open item on the ad hoc committee. So I was concerned that all I wanted to do was to close the book on this. And we were advised the way to do it is a brief letter from the current finance director, being Mike, so that we can just close this. Unfortunately, it was late in the afternoon, which the letter was developed. So I'll read you the letter, and this is what I think we just have to vote on tomorrow or at the next board meeting to have the board authorize Mike to send this letter as they did back last year to authorize John to send a letter to request a drawdown. So this is a letter that's dated November 6th, 2024 from Mike, and it's going to the city council, the mayor, Dan Garrett, the finance director, and it reads, on June 26, 2023, the Board of Education approved a request to draw down $3,044,808 of educational reserves to supplement the fiscal 2024 annual operating budget. This request was formally made on July 5th, 19th, 2024 to the City Council by John Spang, Chief Financial Officer. At the present, the request was made, the superintendent and the cabinet engaged in immediately cost reduction maneuvers. As a result of these cost reduction maneuvers, the district was able to complete the school year without these funds. The Danbury Public School System is requesting to withdraw the request since it no longer is necessary. Michael Weaver. So all we're saying is that we want this thing to be taken off the books and close the request. So I think part of the docket, part of the papers, Kara, in the next board packet should be this letter. And again, Kate, part of our recommendation should be that the Finance Committee suggests or recommends to the full board that they approve the letter to withdraw the prior year's reserve fund withdrawal.
Sure. So, Mr. Janelli, I just have a quick question though. As you were reading that, and maybe I misheard, but I thought you said that the request was made July 19th, 2024. Is that what the letter in front of you says?
Yeah.
It should be 2023.
23.
Yeah.
Or did he mean for the 24 fiscal year?
But it was good catch. 24 is now. So we'll just.
Yeah, I just want to make sure because the original request was submitted by John Spang on July 19th, 2023. So I just want to make sure as we reference it, that we're referencing that original letter. That's all.
I'll make a note to tell Kara to change the
Okay,
date. Thank you. I appreciate that.
sure. So you're looking for a motion, Rich, from the Finance Committee to recommend to the full board the submission of this letter by Finance Director Mike Weaver to formally withdraw the drawdown request that was made
Right.
originally.
Yeah.
So I'll make that motion.
The reserve, indicate the reserve drawdown request.
Sorry, the reserve drawdown request. Yes. So I will make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend to the full board approval of a letter from Finance Director Mike Weaver withdrawing the drawdown request from the reserve funds made originally by on July 19th, 2023.
Right.
Second.
Yeah. But done. Somebody have a second?
Juanita.
No, thank you, Juanita. And all in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. And the last item on it's not the last item. Is the
The audit.
2023 fiscal year financial audit update.
Are we almost done?
I'm gonna share my screen. I just wanted to give you an update. Okay, wait. So this, what we're looking at is, might look familiar from last year. This is called Suralink. It is how RSM, who is the accounting firm that's auditing the city, communicates their audit requests to us. um, which are many. There are currently, through RSM, 3 audits going on. One is the state single audit, which it's an audit of different various grants that the city has, but we do have some things that they ask for since our financials roll up. So all of those requests for DPS have been met. I think there's one thing outstanding. It's from the city. They're just waiting for an untimely filing notice. The second audit is really broken up into 2 different sections. One is kind of the planning. That's when they go in and they ask for a bunch of information, which they then synthesize and come back with other requests to actually test the data. So I don't have access to the city's, but I have access to ours. This is what it looks like. And then as you submit things, they go from outstanding to fulfilled, and then they will either return or accept. We hope that they accept. You can see they made quite a list of requests, and there are still some things that we've submitted that they haven't even looked at. But if you take away the things that we have sent in and successfully submitted, and you take away the things that we fulfilled but they didn't get to look at, you'll see that we're empty, we're done. I think the last time I reported out, we were about 30% done. So now at this point, we kind of move on through the field work portion of the audit. And again, it looks very similar. Just today, we submitted a request and they kicked it back. So there is currently only one thing that's outstanding that was returned back. There are other requests that are going to come after they have a chance to look at our data. They're going to formulate questions and start asking us for payroll registers and invoices, POs, things like that. But currently, we only have that one item that's outstanding, which is just a copy of the front and back of the first and last check for the year. So I'm fully confident that we could get that done tomorrow for them, and we'll be completely up to speed.
Is
Mike,
this still done by Zoom? Or
Yeah,
email?
we have Teams meetings with CLA and RSM on a weekly basis. We have 2 of them. It is very much remote. Our auditors are all over the country, as a matter of fact.
That's crap.
Mike, is for some reason I'm kicked out and I'm just looking at an advertising for Zoom, but are we still on target to be completed by December for the?
As far as I know, I think the date got pushed from December 1st to December 31st. I haven't heard anything different than that. But at that point, they have to put a report together, and they issue that CAFR document, and then we start on the next year, the 24 audit. We're hoping to get that one done quickly as well, and then we'll be finally completely up to speed just before we have to start the 25 audit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It says we're outstanding 14.
This particular type of request is blue outstanding. Is stuff that they haven't selected yet. So you'll see it's kind of like blue over here. If you click on it, you'll just see that they haven't made any selections yet. So we're going to come back for AP disbursements. They're going to ask for not yet selected. They're going to come back and they're going to ask for an absurd amount of invoices. They're going to want to see the POs that belong to that invoice, the canceled checks, the bank statements with the canceled checks on them. And that's kind of like the flipping into high gear. That's kind of like the last section. So we just have this one thing between all 3 audits left, the DPS, and that's the first and last check.
The committee members next, I think it's next Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
At City Hall, there's a meeting of the audit committee. I had requested that at least the finance committee chair, but these meetings are open to the public as far as I know. So if anybody wants to attend, you're certainly welcome. It's at 6 o'clock in room right next to the big conference room, room 3C. And it has to do with the audit committee. So I'm not sure what more you'll learn, but I've asked that we be included. And so,
No, that's a good idea, Rich.
yeah, I'd like to make an
That's
effort
a good idea.
to be there and then just invite anybody else who wants to be there. Since it's an ad hoc, I suspect you're not allowed to talk, but you can certainly listen. Mike, I thank you for that. And again, I apologize what you stepped into. I know you're doing an excellent job. And to me, it's just a huge waste of resources at a critical time, but it is what it is.
We'll push
the last-
forward.
The last item on the agenda is a discussion of the type of reporting. I had received from Teresa and from Kate ideas on their part as to the type of reporting that they'd like to see. If any of the committee members, and I've asked a couple of times during the board meetings, at this point here, wants to send me an email indicating the type of reporting that they'd like to see, just send it to me. What I'm looking to do is I'm going to have the copies of the emails that Teresa and Kate and whoever else forwarded to me, and then I'm going to summarize it on one sheet in addition to my thoughts, so that we could have some sort of a meeting along with Mike to discuss these reports, the feasibility of doing them, what we'd like to see and not see, what's practical. And I think that's going to be a separate amount of time that we're going to have to devote to this particular subject matter. So I'm not going to go through and list the meetings or the types at this point here. I'd rather have the backup and the documentation behind it, and give some of the committee members and the board people a little bit more time to put their request in, and then we could look at this at a separate meeting, because it's going to take a while to at least discuss the concept of it, the reason for it, and the practicality of it. So does anybody have any further comments on that particular subject? That being said, I think we've concluded the items on the agenda. So if nobody else has any information to add. I'll ask
I don't
for-
have any information. I would just like to, just a reminder for board members. Board of Ed, we give out Christmas gifts to Kara and Olga. And I'm asking all board members to come on Monday night with $20 so I can do our Christmas gift to those two people. So I'm expecting all board members to participate, and if you don't, we'll just make sure that Kara and Olga gets a gift for Christmas. Okay?
Okay,
Thanks, Gladys.
thank you. That being said, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second by,
I'll second.
thank you, Kate. All in favor,